Gather round the campfire, friends, and let me tell you a tragic tale from the dark underbelly of 1950s London high society. This is the story of Ruth Ellis, the last woman ever sentenced to death in Britain. Our story begins in the smoky jazz clubs and illegal drinking dens of London's West End, where a pretty young blonde named Ruth is trying to survive. Drawn in by the bright lights of the city, Ruth left behind a troubled childhood in Wales to find fame and fortune. She starts off full of hopes and dreams, but soon falls prey to the seedy side of show business. Ruth took a job as a nightclub hostess. She looks like a movie star with her platinum curls and hourglass figure, but really, she's just arm candy for the rich and dangerous men who flock to these exclusive hangouts. Ruth pretends she fits right in with high society, putting on a posh accent and dyeing her hair, but underneath it all, she's just a working class girl paying the bills. As the months roll by in a boozy haze of parties that never seem to stop, Ruth starts to lose her way. She falls into relationships with not one, but two unsuitable lovers who fight for her affection. Both men come from high society families, but neither is willing to marry Ruth or treat her properly. David is Ruth's main love interest, a blonde and blue-eyed race car driver with piles of family money. But he's also hot-headed and jealous. He lays hands on Ruth severely and often. Then there's Desmond, an older former bomber pilot who promises to care for Ruth forever. But in saying this, Desmond can't seem to commit and is still funding Ruth's rent and expenses on the sly, even while chasing after other women. This messy love triangle comes to a dramatic end late one April night when Ruth finally snaps. After a tortured day of searching the city for David, who is avoiding her calls, Ruth waits outside his favorite pub with a revolver hidden in her handbag. You'll never guess where she gets this piece. From Desmond, of course, along with some quick shooting lessons in the countryside. Apparently, Desmond has been trying to talk Ruth into offing David for months. When David stumbles out of the pub into the street, Ruth steps forward and pumps 6 bullets straight into his chest at close range. Then she just stands there calmly, waiting for the cops to arrive, the smell of gunpowder mingling with her Chanel No. 5 perfume. As David lies dying on the pavement, Ruth has finally given him what she thinks he deserves. But now, Ruth has also sealed her own fate in the process. Her murder conviction is swift, and soon she's sitting in a prison cell waiting to meet Jack Ketch, better known in these parts as the Hangman. As Ruth waits in prison to be executed, the public splits into two camps. On one side, you've got those who see Ruth as a dangerous femme fatale, just another loose woman driven to violence by booze and jealousy. But then there's the sympathy vote from women who recognize the abuse and control Ruth suffered at David's hands. Ruth seems resigned to her grim end as the hangman's rope awaits, but her loyal sister Muriel works tirelessly behind the scenes trying to overturn the conviction. At Ruth's trial, her lawyer argues that David's dreadful mistreatment provoked Ruth into a passionate act she now regrets. But despite evidence of violence, the all-male jury shows little mercy to our blonde and beautiful anti-heroine. Yet, could there be more to this crime than meets the eye? Ruth originally told police she acted alone, hailing a random cab to the crime scene with pistol in hand. But slowly, another narrative emerges, suggesting this was no impulsive femme fatale, but a carefully orchestrated plan between Ruth and her lover Desmond. Turns out, Ruth's family suspects Desmond not only gifted her the murder weapon, but he drove Ruth around town on a twisted scavenger hunt to locate David. But Desmond never shares this incriminating version of events with police, allowing Ruth to shoulder the blame completely on her own. He slyly evades any consequences for his role in her downfall. Desmond washes his hands of the entire affair. He swiftly flees the country, catching the first ship to Australia, where he sets up a new life overseas. There, Desmond changes his name marries, and reportedly lives quite comfortably until the age of 84 when he dies in 1991. But as Ruth's date with the executioner draws nearer, all of Britain holds its breath. Will Ruth become the latest woman sent to the gallows for shooting a lover? Or will a public outcry over her abuse convince officials to grant Ruth clemency? In the end, Ruth dies quietly with a hood over her blonde curls and a rope around her slender neck. Her hanging sets off a powerful movement to abolish capital punishment in Britain, but it's too little too late for our Ruth. In a tragic twist, even Ruth's only son Andre takes his own life years later, unable to bear his mother's loss and the lingering questions around her case. Ruth's legacy lives on as her grave becomes a site of pilgrimage for women seeking justice. And to this day, lawyers and feminists closely examine her file for clues. They ask themselves again and again, was David's death truly a premeditated execution devised by Ruth's jealous ex? Or just a final desperate act from a broken woman at the end of her rope?